Hello, welcome to this library instruction session about how to form search criteria, create search statements, search for journal articles, and evaluate them for how well they fit your selected criteria. I will talk about various source types and how to distinguish them from one another. I will also discuss peer review as well as primary and secondary sources in more depth than in the other tutorials. I will do some live searching so you can see exactly how to do a search, broaden or narrow your search, evaluate search results, and access full text. There are ways you can make your database searching more fruitful using several tools such as Boolean logic, alternative search terms, and citation pearl growing. I will go through how to use them to create a better search to give you better search results. It is important to know about source types such as primary sources, which are original research, secondary sources, and opinion articles. There are several primary source types in medicine, such as clinical trials, randomized controlled trials, and case studies, to name just a few. Research can be quantitative or qualitative, but can be both in the same article. In addition, I will discuss opinion articles and how to recognize them and distinguish them from primary and secondary sources. I talked some about primary sources in one of the other tutorials, but I wanted to mention primary sources here briefly in order to help you learn to distinguish them from other source types, including secondary sources and opinion articles. Remember that in the primary sources tutorial, I talked about keywords to look for to help verify if an article is a primary source or not. Those words are objective, methods, subject, data, results, discussion, and conclusion. This is not conclusive proof that an article is a primary source, however. You can confirm this example is a primary source as well as being a quantitative study because it mentions the study design and summarizes the research data in conclusion. In this particular primary source, this appears in the abstract of the article on the first page, but it's not always so easily visible on the first page. Sometimes you have to drill down into the text of the article to assess whether something is primary or secondary. This one, also says research on the first page. The second source type I will discuss is the secondary source. Secondary sources are called secondary because they are derived from primary sources. Secondary source types include review articles, clinical practice guidelines, interpretations and evaluations of primary sources, and other articles including news articles that refer to primary sources. If you want to verify if an article is a secondary source, look for words like review or review article, review of the literature, practice guidelines, clinical practice guidelines. The text of the article can summarize research data, but it will be data that actually comes from primary sources. This is an example of a type of secondary source, specifically a review article. It reviews several primary sources on a topic. You will likely see a lot of these in doing your database searches, like a review on the last 20 years of research on a topic. This one, of course, doesn't relate to permanent contraception, but it was what I had available. And so in the second slide regarding this article, I just wanted to mention another detail. Even though it is a review article, it has some of the same keywords that I told you to look out for to verify if something is a primary or secondary source. This is one reason I say it's not conclusive proof. Those presence of those terms is not conclusive proof if something's a primary source or not. Sometimes you have to drill down into the text of the article, or you could access the article in a database and see if it says it is a research study or review article. Here's another example of a secondary source. They clinical practice guidelines, or sometimes clinical guidelines or practice guidelines, is what they're called. They are vital to patient care, and doctors and nurses use them every day in making decisions in the care of their patients. You can identify practice guidelines because the names of them usually include something like practice guidelines or clinical guidelines somewhere in the title, or in this case, a little piece of text just above the title of the article. So I've highlighted the words here for emphasis. Okay, how to find practice guidelines. You can find clinical practice guidelines by limiting your database search to evidence-based practice or practice guidelines, depending on what database you're using. The UpToDate database is an evidence-based medicine database that is updated frequently with the latest medical evidence on topics you investigate, search for. The PubMed Clinical Queries database is another evidence-based medicine database. It's from the National Library of Medicine, very good database. And you can also access evidence-based care sheets in the CNOL database. And there are various government agencies and professional medical associations that also put out clinical practice guidelines. I also wanted to briefly talk about opinion articles and give you some hints on how to distinguish them from scholarly articles. Obviously, they contain a lot of opinion. They're specifically written to reflect the author's point of view and possibly even sway your opinion on a topic. They may not have a lot of verifiable facts to back up the argument. You will probably see this all the time in places like Facebook and Twitter and news sites, magazines. And sometimes it's not always obvious. Some opinion articles are a little more sneaky than others. And we're currently seeing a lot of nonstop opinion articles with the impending election and COVID-19. So to help you identify whether an article is an opinion article, ask yourself if the article is written from an objective, scientific, or informative point of view, or is it written from a persuasive point of view? Does the article cite any verifiable facts with the source? Who wrote the article? What is their agenda? Is there a lot of advertising in the publication or around the margins of the article? Surprisingly, I had to do a lot of hunting to find opinion articles on the topic of permanent contraception or tubal ligation. I did a lot of hunting, and most of the ones I did find were in newspaper op-ed columns and popular magazines, blogs online, bunch of places. This particular article appeared in the New York Times and is written from the first-person point of view. Although it doesn't look like there's anything, likely untrue in the article, it is written to reflect the author's opinion on the subject and possibly to convince you to have that same point of view. And here's another example I found, very similar, written from the first-person point of view, appeared in Men's Health magazine, and neither one really cited, any specific factual data, statistics or anything like that, just a story from first-person point of view. So that's to, decipher whether something is an opinion article or not. Next, I wanted to talk about Boolean operators. Those words may sound kind of strange, but they are simply tools that you can use to broaden or narrow your search to improve your search results. So this is so you can get more articles you actually want and less stuff that you have to wade through. This is why it's important to identify search terms and to create a search strategy. So don't just do one search and be satisfied with only those results. After you do a search, examine those search results, and you might want to revise it, the search strategy, if you didn't find what you needed. Or you could just wind up doing 2 or 3 several searches, all because, you have different concepts that you need to do research on. You will also likely discover related terms or alternative terms that can help you hone in on what you need. The first Boolean operator is called the AND operator. It narrows your search by telling the database that all of the search terms must be found in an article in order for it to appear on your results list. So you search for two or more concepts that interest you by combining descriptive keywords with AND. For example, if you're interested in reading articles about how the ethics of tubal ligation, you could use the terms ethics and tubal ligation or similar terms, and that will narrow your search to include only articles that have to do with those two things. Some databases will allow you to specify where in the article you want those keywords to appear, like the title, the abstract, the full text. In this library instruction session, I'm demonstrating how to find articles about permanent contraception and nulliparous, or the condition of never having given birth. But in order to find that term, nulliparous, I had to do some searching of dictionaries and other places online, because I knew what the concept was, but I didn't know the term. And so knowing the term so that you can basically speak to the database is crucial. So next up is the OR operator. It basically broadens the search by telling the database that any of the words it connects are acceptable. So this is particularly helpful when you're searching for synonyms or words that are related in some way, such as tubal ligation or permanent contraception. If you're trying to broaden your search and you only want articles, that are much broader in scope than what your previous search was, you can do a search with OR. So in our search about permanent contraception, we may do a search for tubal ligation or vasectomy. So the search results you get back will contain articles that are about one or the other. Some articles may have both in them. The NOT operator narrows your search by telling the database to eliminate all terms that follow it from your search results. This can be useful when you're very interested in a specific aspect of a topic. For example, you want to exclude certain types of articles, or maybe you don't want to look at books at all. You could eliminate newspaper articles or magazine articles and only get back journal articles, for example. And out of all the Boolean operators, this one is probably the most powerful and slightly dangerous, as there is a possibility that otherwise useful results could be eliminated. So please just keep that in mind. In doing our search regarding permanent contraception, it could be, that we're not interested in articles about vasectomy, for example, so we could search for permanent contraception, not vasectomy. That's just one example of a search you could do. So I did some brainstorming of search terms. I thought of all the terms that, possibly could relate to this topic. And I also did some quick searching of databases and the internet to find keywords and alternative search terms associated with this topic. So what we want to do is figure out what terms we want in our search. Okay. I also did some brainstorming on search strategy, figuring out how to put together the terms and what ways I could use to, make the topic more focused on what we're looking for. And again, I had to consult a dictionary, and parity was another term I came up with. And I also searched Google for guidelines about the topic. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to doing live searches of databases. So I'm going to save this right here, and the live searches will be on another recording.